The Warriors, we spoke about Melbourne.
Yep.
Warriors were fantastic in the second half. Warriors are 0-2, but their football, what they are showing is, in my opinion, a side that is capable of winning the competition.
Yep.
Right. The big test now is to go. It feels uncomfortable when you're 0-2. Even though you've got the formula there, it's an uncomfortable feeling.
Yep.
You know, it's going to be a good test to their nerve to keep their confidence high.
Couldn't agree more. They need to hold their nerve because they're doing a lot of good things without reward at the moment. The last thing they need to do is get trigger happy and start changing things, and they need to double down on what they've been doing, and the results will come. They're a good team. Like the Warriors, I think hadn't beaten Melbourne 16 times now, but for 15 times. Right? They go to Amy Park. Storm are dominant for the first 30-odd minutes. It was 18-6 at half-time. For somehow, a good team like the Warriors who haven't had that success turned it around, they addressed whatever they need and got to the lead.
Yeah.
It took two huge plays for them to lose that game.
Yeah, exactly.
Take the scoreboard out, judge it on the way that you recovered, and I think that's a very good football team.
My player of the round is Wade Egan. He just tormented South right through the middle of the field. Good coaching from Andrew Webster. South's middle defence really lacks energy. It's been poor. And he's designed some really clever little plays. The Warriors' third try, Wade Egan's, as good a ball playing as you see this, where the hang play, dummy, straighten, look for the hang play, is probably one of the toughest passes to throw. And particularly for a first or second receiver, very difficult, but dummy half even more so. It was beautiful. And Wade Egan is masterful because that hang play, who's a person coming from behind you, it's got to be a blind pass. Yep. I was going to say Wade Egan does the no-look pass very good, but I don't like to say for him no-look pass because no-look pass is, in my opinion, sort of frivolity and just for aesthetics. But for him, it was like it's trust pass.
It's almost an art form for him now. Yeah. Whereas in the early stages of his career, the no-look pass got him in trouble a couple of occasions. Now he's done the repetition that it actually hits the mark every time. And I liked it too because the hang play, if you're coming from hidden position like Chance was, and Tohu Harris in this play, I think, was the decoy. He reins this way, Egan finishes on the inside foot, and it creates the space. Did you see the camaraderie or the excitement of the boys when they scored it? Because I liked it. It was a set play. They loved it.
Certainly, his stocks are rising, Wade Egan. I think about the fourth try, he laid another one on, just went straight through the middle of them, playing great football.
I think it's the best game he's ever played. Like, his art out of dummy half had it all. It was the no-look pass, even the condensing of defenders to create space for Johnson to do what he did. I think he had a line break with an offload. He just did a lot of good things.
The thing I really enjoyed about their football too was they were double investigating. So they were, to let people know that is basically where you move to an edge, have a shot, reload, and then come back again. And what it does, it tests a defence's ability to recalibrate and recommunicate. And it was the first try. They went down the right-hand edge. He had Rocco Berry firing Johnson. He went round the back to Chance, who hit an edge. They reloaded, and then bang, they come straight back, and this time Rocco short.
Yep. Part of the reason why teams do that, sort of go away and come back, is that side that you move away from, for half a split second, feel like they're not going to be under a threat.
Yes.
And then it's the overload principle. Shawn Johnson, everyone else flies around to the other side. And the other thing they were picking up on, particularly in Berry's try, I think it was a fit tackle they did it. They're picking on Latrell Mitchell not getting the numbers right. Played outside, came back inside. Latrell Mitchell puts 4 defenders and he sits in behind the ruck expecting the kick. And all of a sudden, just an avalanche of players come around back to that short side. So they do a good job. It's good coaching. Really good coaching.
Second try they scored, it was very similar. It was a reload play, but this one was, if you're Jason Amucho, this one really hurts because it was literally tap start, go into the near post and just turn around, come back and score. No side, no defence should surrender a try on play 2 from a tap like that, just going basically in, basically back and you score.
Yeah, without knowing what Webster spoke about for that try, I'm guessing that he's targeting, I think it would have been Hawkins and Isaiah Tass on that side. So he would have seen most teams play 2 to a field position. And in the video analysis, Webster would have seen oh, look, they're actually lazy, they're not moving here. So why don't we go away, and they'll think that we're not going to set up another play to come back. Let's just hit them on play 2, and it catches them out. Like Isaiah Tass got caught in no man's land, and Warriors score.
You've had a great link with the Kiwis. Okay, the Warriors match. Yeah. Might sound a little bit absurd, but I just thought, as far as them winning the competition, I was more convinced they can by their draw against Manly than some of their better performances, because watching that game, they were really off their game, the Warriors. And you're watching and you're going, well, today's not going to be their day. Dropping balls, they're out of sync, they're out of rhythm, but they found a way to get the point. And, that's when you see, there's a bit of sense of destiny, and there's there could be a title-winning season when you can do that.
Yeah. Well, the habits that you form throughout a season are the ones that come out at the other end. And when you get faced with a bit of a challenge like they did on the weekend, I'm like you. That's a great lesson for them later on, that you can get through those games. It's when like a team goes into a golden point, or and you take the win, or you walk away with 1 point. Mate, that's going to be so valuable to them. But the experience of playing bad and still getting the result, that builds within your team and your belief of how that team's going to develop, and I definitely see them at the other end of the comp.
What about rugby league in New Zealand at the moment, Madge? As I said, you're in the thick of it.
It's huge.
It's incredible. All-time high, you would say?
Yeah, I really hope the game captures that space now. It's a real good time for the game itself to spread its wings. And I know New Zealand Rugby League and the Warriors, they're doing a lot of work in the background, and to develop the flow-on effect. I hope we capitalise on that.
Coops, every side deserves to have a hiccup, and I thought the Warriors have been playing most of their games this year leading up to that match have sort of been very hard-fought games. I actually think that the James Fisher-Harris signing and all the noise around it might have been a bit of a distraction to their focus. But there's one thing in the game to have a look at, is that about halfway through the first half they're attacking. I don't know if it's Shawn Johnson, one of the players throws Adam Fanua a pass that literally shoots past him almost around his hip. He catches it literally with one hand and just brings it straight in. Yeah. It's just more evidence of what type of player he is.
I think we've spoken here on this podcast about the respect that Webster has for his playing group and what the playing group have for Webster. And I dare say it's probably the first time that he's had to give a bloke a couple of rockets. It's really hit him hard because that was a poor performance.
Yeah, it was.
They should have scored more points early on. Their best defensive team up until that point let in way too many points, and I think it might have been on a few occasions that Webster's had to fly off the handle.
There's one thing I think, their system of play is sound, and they complete high, they defend very disciplined. I think there's one area that I think they've just got to tinker a little bit, Coops, with what they're doing on their online attack. Because watching them this year, they've had long periods of being dominant, possession, clearly winning the yardage battle, but they've struggled this year turning that into points.
Yep.
I think that's worth a look. There's one area I would say with the Warriors is just...
I think the way the game is going with the short dropout, competing, getting the ball back sometimes. So if you get a repeat set now, it's not a guarantee that you're going to get 6 tackles or the ball back. So I think what you'll find, the team with big outside backs with aerial ability is definitely a way forward, because if you get down there on the 5th tackle, you've got an option to go to tall timber and come down with the points.
Yep.
That's just as good as getting a repeat set, because you're not definitely going to get the ball back. So I think the Warriors could potentially go more aerial. Shawn Johnson loves the repeat set, builds a lot of pressure, gets possession, but maybe work on the aerial ball.
The Warriors. You got a theory on the Warriors? What's happening here? That's 2 weeks in a row they've lost games that expected to win.
Yeah, I've got a theory. What do you think yours? What's yours? What do you? Because we sat here wrapping them up a couple of weeks ago, and have you now got question marks?
I still think they're capable of winning the competition.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. I just don't know at the moment.
Predictability?
I think there's Coops. I think they're starting to go into dangerous territory with Shawn Johnson. I think they're starting to become an over-reliance on Shawn. Yep. They've got to get more out of Tamari Martin.
Yep.
Right, Tamari's playing on the 6 on the left-hand side in the 6. They've got to get more out of him. Yep. Right, he's got to be more dominant. At the moment, it's Johnson ball.
Yep, so we said this after the start to the season. We said they've got a good team. Webster needs to be stoic and hold his course. And I still believe that's the case. Sometimes, a bit like Penrith, people say Penrith are predictable, and we could sit there and go through some film and go, yep, like Nathan's going to touch the ball here, Isaiah Yeo will step up and bang. And yes, you can see Johnson and Tohu doing the same things. But what predictability does, it's reliable to everyone else around them. And when things aren't going well, all you need to be is centimetre perfect with your rolls and timing and passing to get back to what you were doing well. So, add a little bit of variation, give the teams the same look, but be more precise with the way you're going about it, because when Johnson goes to the line when he squares up, he needs his back rollers right where he needs to. If they're a little bit back, then the play doesn't work. They're a structured team.
Yep.
They've followed the Penrith system. So don't throw everything out. Don't throw the playbook out. Just double down on it. And Shawn needs to be more of a running threat.
Yeah.
Get back to getting a bruise, get back to taking the line on, and then you'll see the pass open up.
Nice work, Coops.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Let's do it all again.
Next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Let's talk about all the players that are injured there. And on the sideline, Shawn Johnson is injured, but he's playing. Tell me your thoughts on Jono at the moment.
I've been in Shawn's shoes where you're at the back end of your career and Shawn's not playing well at the moment. And physically, teams are going after him. Physically, they're making sure that he's having a bad day out. Angus Crichton did on the weekend, Jaden Seward did against the Dragons. And I remember my last year, 2019, we played Penrith at Penrith and Viliami Kikau monstered me for 80 minutes, put me 6 foot under a couple of times. And I was
bottom of a long list there.
I was driving home going, get me out of this season, get me done. Yeah. And for the next 4 or 5 weeks, I played really poor. I wasn't playing, I was sort of there but not present and doing everything I needed to do, trying to stay away from contact.
I remember that, I loved that.
And it wasn't until there was light at the end of the tunnel where there was a reset that I actually got some enthusiasm back for the game. I knew I was finishing. Yep. So I'm not saying that Shawn will finish, but what I'm saying is he needs a reset. He needs this time, whether it's a week, 2 weeks, whatever the injury is. And he needs to work out whether this is going to be his last and he needs to go for it. Because the thing I had on my side, we're at the Roosters, we're in good shape and going to play finals. His team's out of finals contention at the moment and not playing really well. So this time off for that injury for me is a huge reset for Shawn, and it needs to come back with energy and physicality to get back to his level.
He's been here before, Shawn. Like if we remember his stint at the Sharks, that last year he picked up, he had an Achilles injury, had a couple of injuries, but people were saying, well, he's done. Yeah. I remember watching him though. I was really surprised because they had a decision to make Cronulla. There was Matty Moylan and there was Shawn. They were going to keep one, let another one go. I was surprised they let Shawn go. I saw glimpses of Shawn at Cronulla that I thought he'd played some of his best football as far as leadership was concerned. Yep. So we've seen him here. We've seen him here before. What's not helping as well is he's lost his half partner in Metcalf. Tamari Martin is not giving him enough. Yep. He ain't giving him enough. And the side's struggling. The forwards just aren't bending the line back like they were. So here's an opportunity for the Warriors to reset because Cooper, for me, they've obviously lost their way. I'll give you the area that I think they've lost their way. Last year, and we spoke similarly about this last week, if the Warriors had a twin brother, it was the Dolphins. They played a very similar style. Now, what I mean by that, they started the first 30 minutes of their game very conservative. Power football, few errors, even few offloads, kick long and pour energy into defence. Right, that's how they built their game. In my opinion, in the last month, they've been too focused on attack from the get-go. On the weekend, straight off the top, from dummy half, Freddie Lussick and Wade Egan, they had them throwing cut-out passes, long cut-out passes to forwards running directly, like catching the ball in the face of the defence. For me, that's high-risk football. I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to get their power game on and all that. But that's a lot of high-risk passing, a lot of high-risk reception, and it brought upon errors. And like 20, you look at where they were last year and things that they did and how they built their game. One thing about rugby league is you can't win the game in the first 20 minutes, but I tell you what, you can lose
Set it up, yeah.
And you can lose it, Coops.
Yep.
And 22-0 after 13 minutes. Yep. That is a polar opposite to what they're doing last year.
There's no doubt that the Warriors and Webster have gone, okay, look, we've got a good football team here. We did this well last year, but how about we try doing this? And all of a sudden, if you start stepping away from what you're good at, you start losing a lot of those things that made you effective in winning games of football.
It's interesting what you said there, is that for the want to progress your football and become a better football side, sometimes, you're risking, it's an old saying, don't abandon the mule that takes you to the top of the mountain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think with the want to evolve their football, they've just wandered away from what was working.
Yep.
Big week. It was a big weekend for the Wars too.
Yep.
Had to win.
Yep.
That is, I think, it's probably the bravest win in Warriors history.
Yep.
And it's one of the bravest wins that I've seen for a long, long time. What's interesting, Coops, no, Shawn Johnson lost a lot of stars before the game started, but then lost Wade Egan.
Yep.
And when you're sitting here going, well, they're certainly under the pump here.
Yep. So basically a whole new spine to a picky. Wade Egan went off, Roach went in there. And they went with Martin and Klukstar as the halves pairing. And I thought Tamari Martin was absolutely brilliant because some of the plays that he came up with were first class as a ball player. Here's the first try they set up. Watch this. Plays short to Barnett. That's into Jack Cole, the rookie half. Goes back to the centre of the field. And watch what he does here. Goes back to the rookie half, pretends to play to Barnett out the back. And that's their first try. That is ball playing 101, attacking the weakness, because he just goes back there multiple times. Forces the kid to get his head in a bad spot, resets, and the kid now thinks, I'm going to have to tackle Barnett again. And goes in, drags him on, and just plays out the back, and he hesitates for half a second.
It's an unorthodox pass he throws.
This one here, just as good too. Just get into the line and put him up. So Isaiah Yo's off the field here. They've got a little bit of luck. But if they're going to score points against the Panthers, you've got to get on top of them while they're down to 12 men. And he comes up with 2 try assists in this period of time. The first one here, and then this one over the other side of the field. Gets in, just gets eyes straight to Martin and puts Pompey straight through. So he stood up. When Johnson was out, he stood up, and this was the match winner here. See that double pump?
Lovely. Yeah.
Tyron Peachy comes in slightly. Yep. The double pump delays it, and it gives Tuapiki a chance to kick the goal as well. So 3 try assists. The first play was brilliant. And this is a guy that wasn't playing at a high level for the month prior to this.
Had been struggling.
Sean's gone, and he basically just did what Sean's been doing, but better than he had been for a period of time.
And you said before about Kalen Ponga, how that's benefited. Not having Kalen, not playing Ponga ball has suited the Knights and made them strengthen other areas. Same with Johnson.
Klukstar was good in the 6 too.
Mate, I love what Klukstar did.
Yep.
He run all the time. And Coops, it's funny, having that change of spine, losing so many stars. We said before at Canberra, know what sort of side they were. It forced the Warriors to play a more simple game. We spoke last week, in my opinion, the Warriors had lost their way in the fact that last year when they're winning games, they're starting the games quite conservative and they're building in. Well, it was similar.
Well, the first half, they had an avalanche of good ball, and that only tried to Montoya was the only try they scored, but they didn't look like they were cracking enough. And in the second half, they got lucky with Isaiah Yo, but they come up with points when they had to. It was a hell of a victory because the emotion on every one of their faces afterwards, it was almost like a finals match.
It was really good.
Yeah.
Well, in a lot of ways, it sort of was, Coops.
Yeah, it was.
They had to arrest that slide really quickly. You want to talk about the Warriors?
Yeah, so the Warriors, they switched up. So the thing about the Warriors when they were in their rut, Shawn Johnson wasn't playing that high level, got injured against the Roosters, then Tamari Martin moves into halfback. And all of a sudden, they put some wins together. And I picked up something Webster actually said in the pre-game before the Storm game, said, we're actually changing things up. Tamari will be the main guy and Shawn will play second role. So here a couple of weeks back when Shawn was there, Shawn's in the middle, Charnze Nicoll-Klokstad on the right, and Tamari Martin's here on the left. Against the Melbourne Storm, they switched it up. Tamari Martin being the main indicator, calling the shots, Charnze is on the left, and Shawn's here on the right. So Webster's gone with, okay, Tamari Martin has been doing a great job for us. I'm going to give him the keys to the Warriors' attack. And the way that they started the game was pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think this might be a big moment for Shawn because it could be, he's off contract. It could be the thing that he might get upset about in terms of being made second fiddle, or it actually could prolong him. You could get that extension, because if you're playing on a right side with less touches, you're just going to be more fresh and more on the ball. And he ran the football on the weekend, Shawn.
It's going to be it's an interesting dynamic. Do you support it? Do you support Tamari being the centrepiece playmaker?
Tamari is more of a threat to run the football, and as we've said here 1,000 times, to be a good ball player, you need to be a threat to run the footy. I think for a couple of weeks, to put Shawn there, maybe they can need to change it back, because it's the same system.
Yep.
But I like it for the moment, for the next couple of weeks to test out.
Coops, what's the biggest story? Or what's the biggest statement? Best win in Titans history or the worst loss in Warriors history?
I would like to say that it was the Titans on the Gold Coast, just because it was home. It's the best thing they've done for a long time. But I think the storyline is the Warriors. Like, we're meant to know what's happening in rugby league from time to time, and I'm happy to say I've got no idea what's going on at the Warriors, because I thought they turned a corner for a period of time, won 3 or whatever. But that performance then, it was bad.
Shawn Johnson, Tamari Martin.
Yep.
Solve the puzzle for me.
Well, I thought they did when they moved Tamari Martin into that. We showed it last week. But it doesn't matter what's in your team. I feel the Warriors have fallen into this trap that their attack is all about the system, the play, and the pass. What I mean by that is pretend there's no defenders and we just run the play that we want. We go 2 here, we come back there, and like a train to run, the winger puts the ball down the corner.
So you come to formulate.
But you come to a game and you need forward thrust. You need to recognise that it needs to be ball runners, not ball players. And I just feel like the halves, because they're the ones that get the gun when it happens to about the attack, need to run the ball and play short passes more than anything out the back. Just reset that momentum of forward thrust with your ball playing and then out the back. But I can't solve that.
Coops, their defence was terrible, but their really poor attack and the errors they made in attack really fed their poor defence. A couple of things, Coops. Like last year, we'll talk about last year because it was successful.
Well, this whole up the Waz thing was the greatest thing, Coops, in New Zealand rugby league.
And that's why, I said on the show Sunday night, there's a great rivalry between Australia and New Zealand. But I think for most Australian rugby league supporters, it breaks your heart, this, because it was the best story in rugby league, the Waz.
Yeah.
And the game was, and the game in New Zealand was flying on the back of that.
They've had multiple sellouts at home, and
now they're really testing the faith of their supporters. But Coops, last year, just have a think about this for a second. So last year, as far as the halves are concerned and the playmakers, and just remove Wade Egan just for a second, there was Shawn Johnson. He was that central playmaker, and Luke Metcalf was his 6, and he was essentially a runner of the football. So that allowed him to keep things pretty simple. At one point in the game on the weekend, we had Shawn, we had Tamari Martin, we had Chanel Harris-Tavita, and we also had Dylan Walker, and then of course throw on top of that Wade Egan. It was just so much passing going on, and not enough just punch. And there just wasn't enough ball runners out there.
Well, to be honest, the way to solve the riddle, and we've just said it then, is have your ball players running the football. As simple as that sounds, your ball players need to run the football with a short pass as option 1. It's the difference between 60 points and whatever is the ability to actually run the ball, make it impact with one play, as opposed to looking for that big grand thing that looks pretty.
It's interesting. So it's almost like, South fixed their puzzle by saying jack to 6, which we spoke about a lot. If you want someone to run the ball, put a ball runner there. My greatest fear going into this year was the continuation of a trend that the Warriors have had. Great year, poor year. And unfortunately, it's starting to go down that route. Now, Coops, let's go from a leader who's really at the start of his career, only 23 years of age, to a bloke who had the fairy tale finish, not the grand final fairy tale finish, but his last possession in rugby league, double cut-out pass for the try, Shawn Johnson. I never had the opportunity to play against Shawn. What was he like to play against? Was he a big chirper on the field?
No, very quiet. Didn't really notice him on the field until he did something, and sometimes that was a lot of the time that he played. I really love. Shawn came in as a genuine touch footy player. Yep. His ability to bounce left, right, evade defenders, skip and jump, and avoid contact with ball was better than most at his age. But then, remember what he did last year? He became this game-managing leader, sort of spiritual director of the game plan, really, which he hadn't done for years before. So I like that he evolved, and it's very poetic that in his last game, his first try assist was 101 Shawn Johnson, where he goes to the target defender on a short side 4-on-4, skips, jumps, evades, throws the dummy, goes straight through and sets up the pass. And then his very last touch is all on him. He knows exactly what he wants to do, and he gets his look, and he just throws this double cut-out pass that ends up winning the game for. Unbelievable. Honestly,
yeah, I tell you, who they've really lost. It was evidence the other night. Was Luke Metcalf was a huge loss to that team right through the middle of the season because he balanced the football team, he balanced the creative players. You know, whereas you had Wade Egan. Last year and the start of this year and Shawn sort of pushing the team around the park and everything. Metcalf was just a pure runner. Yep. He wasn't going to push the ball sideways. He wasn't going to step on their toes. And the loss of Metcalf brought Tamari Martin into the top, who was fantastic. But the combination just didn't work.
And we spoke about it. They actually changed their system to accommodate Tamari Martin as the 7, and Shawn came back 1 week and played 5'8".
Yeah.
And it was. Yeah, well done to Shawn. Tip my cap to him in the way that he finished. But if I'm a Warriors fan, I'm sitting there going, well, where's that been?
Yeah, of course.
Where's that play been? Because off the back of up the wires and everything, they had a lot of reasons to be in the top 4. And to be honest, probably should be playing finals in a couple of weeks' time.
Totally agree. The Warriors. This is my greatest disappointment, just simply because I've loved to have seen them win the competition. A lot of expectation. Look, a lot of things didn't happen. And I said this last week. I thought Luke Metcalf being absent for a long stretch, I think it really affected the balance of their attack. I think that was a contributing factor.
I think the Warriors got comfortable. They played some really predictable, slow-moving, sort of lacking intensity consistently. But then their last performance against the Sharks showed that they can do it.
Yeah.
So where has that been for 15 weeks prior?
Best player, Mitch Barnett?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, Mitch Barnett. Next year, so no Shawn Johnson, no Fanua Blake, but they get James Fisher-Harris. Yeah. Warriors are always a very difficult side to get a handle on.
I think the Fisher-Harris signing is more about spirit and example of what a winner looks like as opposed to adding value to the way they play.
Yeah.
I think what he's done to that forward pack at Penrith, i.e. Moses Leota, he will do to that next front rower, really.